So, Wicked for Good is the perfect example of when an empath who has suffered from narcissistic abuse regains their power. And unfortunately, it is not pretty. It ends up being they go into their full villain era. And so in this video, I want to break down basically how Elphaba navigates her villain era and how she starts becoming more empowered, how she starts healing herself, finding her own life and her voice again, and how she finally starts to heal and move on from this toxic environment. Okay, let's get into it. Yes! I love that this turned kind of Marvel, and she's surfing, she's silver surfing on her broom. Here's the thing I will say initially. In my last review, I talked about how she ended, defying gravity and leaving by basically like waking up to the fact that she was being abused by a narcissist, that she was being controlled and manipulated by narcissistic people. And so we begin this movie with her being like, all right, well, I'm I'm going to be basically the vigilante. I'm going to be like, the resistance against the narcissistic rule. And I will say it's kind of surprising off the bat that, even though she's been campaigned against, and it's pretty typical that, she's scapegoated, she doesn't seem to have any allies. And she is so isolated. And in a lot of smaller environments, so immediate families, maybe workplaces, your social circle, whatever, that is realistic, where you might not have a single person who you really trust who is on your side. But on this sort of macro scale, where Elphaba has been villainized to all of Oz, I find it not believable that there aren't little groups or pockets of oddball vigilante people who want to follow her. So I wanted to point this out from the jump because I think that a lot of this movie is going to talk about how, you are isolated and no one believes you. And you're just kind of like, okay, well, I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to crash out. I'm going to do this. Well, I think in real life, we're going to have more support than that. And we've also seen that in different movies, right? Like, I think in the last review, I talked about Harry Potter, and obviously there's Star Wars. Like, Harry Potter, a lot of people idealized him, but he also had a lot of people who hated him. But it was really split in that world. And in Star Wars, for example, like, there was still resistance. Like, there would be people as different as you are, especially in as big as an environment as like a whole city, there would be a good amount of people who would support you. You would be able to find your people. I think if this were, today's world, well, obviously, if this were today's world, we'd be more progressed. But if this was even like a couple decades ago, like, Elphaba still would have found her little group of vigilante people who would be like, free the animals, and they would have shirts and they'd be like a whole gang. And then they would be using Elphaba's propaganda and her face and her greenness. Like, I feel like her whole group would just like paint their skin green, and they call themselves like the green, I don't know, the green witches, whatever it is, the green coven, whatever it is. Like, I feel I feel like it's unfortunate that Wicked presents it as Elphaba is completely alone, because if you do empathize with her, if you do recognize yourself in her, I want you to know that there would be more people supporting you. And there might be people who just straight up would be like, you are our symbol. You are our Mockingjay. You are our resistance. So that's what I'm a little bit surprised with it in Wicked, but I will say it's not completely unbelievable. Obviously, it's a movie based on a musical, based on a book, but like based on another movie. I think, is that the order, or was it a book before Wizard of Oz, and then there was another book, and then I don't know. But I think either way, it's somewhere down there. But like, I feel like, even though it's a movie and it's Hollywood This is somewhat representative of what happens when you are in somewhat smaller environments. When you do have people on the far, I could say conservative end of things, like it is somewhat realistic that you would not have a single supporter, and that your like little, like only single supporters are also being attacked or caged. Like, so that's what's happening with Elphaba here. The only kind of ally that she had was Dr. Dillamond, and he was already captured, like from the first movie. And then everybody else is kind of a half ally. So she sort of has Glenda, but obviously in this movie, not entirely. She has Fiyero-ish, but it happens later. And then she had her sister maybe more so in the first movie, not even that much. And then afterwards she just loses her sister. So yeah, I will say I think it's kind of like this is more representative of an environment where it's maybe smaller, but everyone is so far in like onto one side of the spectrum where it's hard for you to fight for yourself and to make change anyway. She is trying to get a message still out to the community. So we see here she's trying to she tries to say it in the clouds, like the wizard is a liar. And unfortunately, in the beginning here, we still see that Elphaba doesn't quite know still how to protect herself. And then I would say she still doesn't actually understand strategically what to do. And I think that's what often happens when we are isolated, when we are scapegoated, when we're victimized. I think you shouldn't get involved with those people at all, and you should have boundary around that. But with Elphaba, with how much high justice sensitivity that she has, and with how much she feels the need to send the message to other people, she cannot help but still keep trying. And girl, I'm like this. I'm an Aquarius. I am an autistic. It doesn't really resonate with people if they are so self-protective, if they need to be a person that needs to believe in things that, in things that are easier to believe, right? She wants to help. She wants to go against the grain. And she is sort of trying to get into her villain era. She's trying to gain her power here, but she doesn't quite know how to. I don't want to have to protect myself that much more. I don't want to have to take on the traits of someone who's always scanning for danger. I don't want to have to learn to be strategic so that I don't get hurt, and it's unfortunate because I think what Elphaba is doing here is what a lot of us would do and what I would do too. And it's trying to warn people, tell people so that, they don't get hurt. And I think that she's doing it from a place of compassion, but she's not doing it from a place of strategy. And she's not doing it from a place of realistically looking at how those people operate. And I think that a lot of these people don't care that much more. If they found out that the wizard didn't have magic, I don't know. They might just go with it. Elphaba here is singing about why she wouldn't leave her toxic environment. And it's kind of I think that a lot of people would ask that, whether that's, why didn't you cut off your toxic friend? Why didn't you distance yourself more from your toxic family? Obviously, why didn't you leave that toxic romantic partner? And it's hard because, the way that Elphaba sings it, there's no place like home. And she's basically saying, I don't know another environment. I don't know what it feels like to be somewhere healthier. I don't understand why, why I am still good and everybody's still the way that they are. I don't understand how to believe that something could be healthier. And I basically am just used to the devil that I know. in some ways, she's also saying, I'm conditioned mostly to learn how to survive within this environment. I don't know my identity, honestly, without being under manipulation or under a narcissist's rule. Like, plus, she is saying quite literally, this is my home. So why should I leave? But I think it is a little bit more so the other thing. Unfortunately, we often stay with what is most familiar. Dulcibert asks her why she's staying there because everyone literally wants to hurt you. Everyone has been hurting you. Why are you still there? I think the reason why she crashes out and she turns villain era later is because she is not letting herself acknowledge the reality of people right now. So I'm including these first couple of scenes here because this is part of the descent into your villain era. You're still trying, even though you woke up and you realized something was bad, you're still trying. And for me, I know it's hard but it's also like, it's the process, right? Like, it's not going to be easy to completely cut things off. It isn't easy, especially if you had to survive within that. So if you were going through something similar where you're like, I just realized that I'm in an unhealthy environment. I don't know why I don't want to leave it. I don't know why I don't want to leave my toxic boyfriend or whatever. Like it's definitely understandable because it is all you've known. And it's okay if you do have to go through ups and downs in order to find what you need and in order to balance yourself out again and to feel safe again. Okay, so even though Elphaba is now awake to the fact that she is being abused by a narcissist, she is still allowing herself to be manipulated another time by the narcissist, the wizard. But she's still kind of going into the belly of the beast. She had this intention where she was like, I'm going to be really empowered. I'm going to tell him. I'm going to tell him off. I'm going to tell him to change. I'm going to make the change myself. And then she's kind of won over just by the promise of, buy this sort of deal. And it's kind of unfortunate because this is kind of realistic. Like, it's kind of realistic that we maybe still go back to the narcissist or the manipulative people in our lives, even after they've shown us a couple of times that they're the way they are. Yes, some people change, but I feel like you need to give them more time to show you that they've changed before you fully trust them. And Elphaba here, now granted, this is all still new to her. She's pretty fresh in her sort of self-empowerment villain era journey. So she still doesn't know how to recognize the signs, but I do think that even though it's a movie, I think this is still kind of realistic, where a lot of us would still maybe give in to the narcissist or manipulator, even if they've shown us a few times already that they are not healthy. And, and then you see, oh my God, he only gave her part of the truth. So he was being more strategic. And she didn't realize that. She didn't even think ahead of that. And I think it's important to realize, now it can be really difficult because, again, we don't want to be people who always have to be scanning for danger, because that's not a good way to live. I think you should know how to be aware of danger. I think you should know how to protect yourself, but your whole life shouldn't be that you're always on guard to be strategic against people who are not healthy to be around, And I feel like the way to prevent that is to at least recognize enough when someone has shown you a pattern. The wizard allowed her to be manipulated into giving those monkeys wings. The wizard also lied to a city of people that he had magic powers, and he didn't. the wizard also made a campaign against her to make her seem evil and to probably kill her and to attack her. All of those things should tell you already, oh, this person has a pattern of withholding information, of being sneaky, of lying, and of proving that, you know, they will do what they need to as long as it protects themselves. And that includes harming you. And okay, that's probably harsh and a hard thing to say, but it's kind of like, you know, if you keep going back to the same person and they've shown you time and time again they're not faithful, or they're going to lie to you, or whatever, it's hard to decondition yourself from being manipulated by that person, especially if they keep promising new shiny things, if they keep saying, I'm going to change, you know? And it's unfortunate, but yeah, we see that. I think Elphaba's biggest mistake in this moment is that she said yes too fast. She said yes too fast. She didn't sit back and try to see change behaviors. Now, if it were me and I was in this situation, I'd be like, no, I have to completely get out of there because it's not healthy. But the compromise is you wait and see. You see if this person really does have good intentions and if they're changing. But I don't think you say yes right away. I think that most of this movie, Elphaba doesn't fully let herself crash out. She doesn't fully defend herself or become on the defense mode or protect herself until it gets at its worst. And unfortunately, this is something that I see with myself as an empath and with a lot of us who are empaths, because we sort of have too much endurance to take abuse. And let me say that plainly. I think that we accept too much abuse. I think that we think it makes us stronger. I think that we are also trying to wade through the problems and trying to solve it ourselves. This is a lot of what Elphaba is doing. She's like, I'm going to keep trying because things need to change and I'm going to help people. And she has so much compassion. She has such a big heart, and that's the goal. And she is trying to sort of be the hero. But she's seen time and again that even this environment as a whole doesn't want to see that as heroic. Like they kind of don't want her as their hero. But she still is just like, well, this is what's right. And even though it is, objectively, it is, she doesn't get the signals that she is not going to be accepted or seen, you know, in a way without making all the effort that she's doing, you know? Like, it's crazy because Elphaba keeps trying. Elphaba is like, I'm going to write messages in the sky. I am going to make another plan. I'm going to, you know, try to make a plan with the wizard. Okay, well, I will try to free the animals. And she makes a lot of great progress. And this is important to make the change that needed to happen in the environment. But she kind of is using all of her energy to do this. Her whole existence right now is like, she doesn't have hobbies. She doesn't have other ambitions. Like what was her ambition when she was in the school? Just to like grow her powers, right? Like she learned from the book, but then at the same time, like this whole thing, her justice agenda became her purpose. But before that, what was it? You know what I mean? Like, what was your purpose before it became other people and fixing narcissistic? Like, what was her purpose before she had to fix a narcissist problem? That just hit me as like insane, because I think that's something that I've fallen into a lot before, where I was just kind of like, I think I put stuff aside. I put, you know, my passions aside, my hobbies aside, my life aside, because I needed to sit here and fix the problem that a narcissist made, or I needed to help the narcissist change, or I had to hyper focus on the narcissistic person all the time. And it's crazy because even in this situation, even though it helps the greater good, like it does not help her individually. And so it's great because, I'm willing to die for my cause, but you do have to step back and realize realistically, like, do the people you're wanting to serve want to be served? Do they need to change more in order to get the message? Are the people changeable? Realistically, are the people changeable? How much of your life and your effort is going to be taken trying to change a situation? Is there a better way to do it that still preserves you and takes care of you? So, okay, I just wanted to point that out because this is why she doesn't realize this. So then she does what she does next. All right, so not to be smiling, but yeah, we have the whole Wizard of Oz of it all happen. Like they become so manipulative that they literally kill her sister. Yes, they were starting to become estranged, but they literally kill someone close to her. And then they capture and they try to kill another person she loves, Fiyero. And so at this point, she finally gets into her villain era and she sings No Good Deed. She finally, in the song No Good Deed, says, I am tired of being good. Thank God. But do you know how long it took her to get there? Do you know how stuck she was on trying to fix a narcissist and trying to fix the narcissist problems that they made? Like, how long did it take her to realize she should stop? Like, this is something that I have gone through myself, where I think I spent so much of my time trying to help something, and then I realized most of my day was trying to work out in my head, like trying to understand how people have been treating me. Like so much of my life has been processing things. And so, okay, anyway, I'm so glad she finally fucking got there, but it took her a while, right? And so in No Good Deed, it's such a good example of how, like, when an empath finally snaps, when it's the straw that breaks the camel's back, and then they realize, oh my God, I was not protected. Like, this much shit happened to me. They hurt the people around me. Like, they are going to come for me. No matter how much good I try to do, shit is still going to happen to me. And then she finally realizes all of my efforts, like all of whatever I've done, these people didn't change. And it turns her, this is her turn into full villain era. And I would say full, it's like Wizard of Oz would make us seem like she went real villain, but I take Wicked for Good and Wicked as the real story. So seeing it from Elphaba's eyes, she was just kind of frustrated and she was taking it out on Dorothy and her having her sister's shoes. And what was she doing with Dorothy? Well, in this movie, she was just locking her in the basement until she gave the shoes back. But like, to her and to the rest of, I guess, Oz, that was her being a full villain. Oh my God. But really, it's the first time she really laid down the rules of, this is my boundary. You have crossed my boundary. Like, you have harmed someone around me and you took something of theirs. And that's not okay with me. And this is the first time where she really is making a boundary for the sake of herself and her needs and emotionally what she wants. And it doesn't come out in an even, confident way. It comes out as evil because she doesn't know how to assert her boundaries yet. Unfortunately, it's great because this whole situation, like when she sings No Good Deed, when she's like now taking it all out on Dorothy, basically, like, it is her not knowing what to do with her anger. Her anger's coming up. And I have been going through this lately, and I think a lot of empaths might find this happening as well. Like, when you start realizing how bad abuse or trauma or toxic behaviors have been. Like, when you finally start bringing your energy back to yourself, when you finally stop hyper focusing on everybody else and trying to help them, and you think about you, all of these other emotions, the suppressed emotions, the anger, the sadness, the realization that stuff's happened to you, it all starts coming up. And you might start getting, little, almost like body recognition, body memories of things, situations where you should have been more mad. I go through this, like, I'm going through this now, where it's maybe been a couple months since something bad's happened. And then I wake up, like, kind of like, wait a minute. I should have been more angry. Why wasn't I more angry? And then I will be in moods where I'm just like, where just all the anger is coming out. Yes, you might crash out a little bit. You might take it out on somebody. You might, it might not come out perfectly. You're not perfectly going to realize your anger and take your energy back for the first time and be like, well, I am a full, confident person now. Like, I've taken back my power. Like, I think we can, and we should, even though it's hard, we should start practicing that, until it really sticks. But a lot of the times, a lot of those hard feelings are just going to come up, and you're going to have to feel them. At this point in the movie, I kind of love it. Like, I love that she fully was like, bitch, I'm evil now. Okay, I'm over it. Everyone wants to call me evil. You killed my sister. You're attacking my boyfriend. Like, okay, bitches, you wanted evil. I'm going to be evil. And it's just her being like, bitch, give me those shoes. That's really it, But like, it feels like Elphaba didn't know what else to do, because in the environment that she was in, her just saying, hey, I want my sister's shoes back wasn't going to be effective. And she finally realized these people may just be constantly acting strategic and manipulative, and they may just, she can't simply say, give me those shoes back, and in some situations it might work, sometimes it might not. And so it's valid that right now she's just crashing out and she's going, well, I have to be a full villain in order to actually get respected. Like, because apparently that's what happens. And, even that is not fully strategic. It's not fully thought out. It's still sort of acting on emotions, but it's honest, and it is a real, kind of process that happens when you are trying to heal and when you're trying to find your voice again. And so I will just say, crash out when you need to, like, if you have been suppressed, if you have been controlled, if you have been abused, like, there comes a time when you have to finally let that anger out, and you get to, and it's important that you do. Try not to, lash out to people, though. It might happen. Hopefully it lands on the right people, but either way, like, it's important to allow yourself to have those hard feelings sometimes, and know that they don't have to take over you. They don't have to turn you into a villain either. So let me just say, I think when those hard emotions come up, when we have a lot of anger and rage, you think, oh, I have to call myself an angry person, a rageful person. You don't have to. It might be a period of life where you have a lot of anger come up, but it might pass if you let it, So yeah, anyway, I think it's great that I love that she gets to descend to her villain era. Like, I love that she gets to be angry for a little bit at the end of this before she resolves and kind of just leaves, because it's valid. And, I think that it is hard to balance yourself out. So obviously you might get into a situation where the worst of you comes out because you were always trying to protect it by being the good person, by being the good girl or good boy, the more you suppress and the more you don't let yourself, really advocate for yourself, like, is the more that gets, that needs to come out. So I'm not surprised that she didn't know how to jump into being fully confident and like strategic and like smart about everything right away. Like she's gonna have, and you are, if you are healing as an empath or a person in general, you are gonna have your villain era where you're figuring out what your boundaries really are, where you are crashing out because you're angry. And I think it's super necessary in order for you to learn how to fully flesh out the rest of your identity and where you want to have harder boundaries and what you actually want. I also will say, I think your anger and your sadness and your real hard feelings, that come out when you're in your villain era, like they're going to tell you your needs and where you have been ignoring your needs. Also, I will say, I love that Elphaba's villain era doesn't stick around for too long. Like, she finds out that Fiyero is still alive, and she decides, I don't want anything to do with Oz anymore. Like, and I think that's awesome. And what's crazy, though, is that she has to go to the length of, she has to fake her death. And symbolically, kind of, I believe that move is almost to say, I'm killing this identity that I've had. I no longer want to live this survival personality, this version of an empath, this unhealthy empath identity that I've had. I no longer want to be known as the thing that people have painted me as. I don't even want to be in an environment anymore. I don't want to exist to people anymore who have hurt me previously. Like, I want to completely take myself out. I want to be reborn. I want to create a new identity. I want to create a new life for myself. And I love that because even though it's kind of drastic and it's kind of like obviously movie over the top, like it is really saying like, I want to kill my old identity, and I found for me as well, like there was sort of a quote unquote ego death that I've gone through where I just kind of decided I don't like that a lot of my life has been lived in survival. Like I forgive and I love the person I had been, but I want to move on and I want to build a life that I want to be, the person I want to be. And I think that happens to a lot of us where we have to kill the old version of ourselves. We have to kill the ego, the old identities that we developed around having to survive narcissists or survive in toxic or unhealthy environments. So it is completely warranted to me, honestly, where Elphaba was just like, you know what? I want to cease to exist. I don't want to know that other people are trying to speculate about me. I want this all to stop. And I want to declare this to be gone, this to be dead, done, and over with. And I want to have my new beginning and my new life. And again, I think a lot of people might watch the end of Wicked and they go, oh my God, Glinda got everything. But in reality, I think Glinda got what she wanted in the environment that she learned to thrive in, where Elphaba just decided, I'm not going to thrive there, and I'd rather die or have my identity be gone there and start new in a different environment. I love that she gets to, in the end, actually leave Oz. I feel like a lot of people would see that and go like, that's not how her ending should have been. She should have been thriving. She should have been like, people should have like apologized to her. Like she should have, corrected her name with this environment. If that's possible, in whatever situation you're in, if it's possible, that's great. That's wonderful. In situations like in Wicked, in communities like Oz, there are groups of people who just will not change. And it's important to realize when something is really not safe and when to take yourself out of it. And I think Elphaba was really smart in the end here, where she could have, with Glinda's help, she could have continued to try to, to be alongside Glinda and to allow Glinda to clear her name. She could have, but after you've realized how much has happened to you, you might just be like, are these people worth it anymore? Like, why do I think this is worth it anymore? I don't care that this was home, and I don't need to subject myself to even more, work when I didn't deserve to work that hard to be accepted. And so I love that at the end here, Elphaba kind of just goes off with Fiyero to a new land, a new environment, and she steps away from the toxic environment entirely. And to me, I feel like, especially if you don't have enough allies, if you have to work this hard to be seen and accepted, and if people are that susceptible to being, to believing whatever they see, and if they're not thinking more deeply, then yeah, those aren't the people for you. That's not where you're going to thrive. That's not where you're going to grow. So I think that it's important to be able to recognize when to walk away. And it's kind of funny, but not funny at the same time, that like she's walking into the abyss, into like Dune, basically. But like she's walking into a land where there's nothing yet except dust. So, and it's as if to say, like, it is up to her to build that environment. And it's kind of like a blank canvas, which is awesome. But you could also say it in terms of empaths, right? Like, maybe we don't know what the environment looks like yet, where we are treated very equally and we're always accepted. I think we're starting to build that. I think it's up to us to really start implementing that, and we can. But it is something that we don't quite see as manifested yet, but we are starting to. And yeah, so anyway, so I wanted to go over this whole movie because I just think it's important to see these parts of healing as an empath. The fact that a lot of what we need to learn is to learn how to protect ourselves. We don't have to completely change into strategic people who are always like, socially two-faced or whatever, but we can step back and start recognizing when things are no longer healthy for us. And also, just in general, you should not have to work that hard at being treated decently by other people. You should not. And if it comes down to it, it is completely okay to walk away, even from people, from the place that you grew up in, even from a friend who had your back but is still not completely on the same moral plane as you. Like, it's okay. Draw those boundaries, step away, and go build the life that you want to with the people who you completely trust. You don't have to halfway trust people anymore. Okay, well, anyway, I invite you to descend into your villain eras, whatever that looks like. I'm sure it's actually not that bad, but like, that's not very villainous. But in my next videos, I will talk about if Glinda is a narcissist, and I will analyze the relationship between Elphaba and Glinda. Is it toxic? Is it karmic? Yeah. Okay, so stay tuned. Also, let me know what you think. If you agree, disagree, if you have other opinions that you want to share, drop it in the comments below. Okay, well, until next time, peace and love. Bye-bye.